Hi guys, this is lesson 5.2, solving inequalities by multiplication and division. So in the last chapter and chapters before that, we used the multiplication property of equality, where if I knew that I had a balanced equation, I could multiply both sides or divide both sides by anything I wanted to. Let's say we wanted to just, multiply this times 1/2, which is the same as dividing by 2. Then we would get 4 times 1/2, which is 2, equals x. And we would have solved it. But we have a little bit of a trouble when we are dealing with inequalities. So 4 greater than 2 is a true statement, correct? 4 is more than 2. And if I just want to multiply by a positive number, so let's say here I want to go like times 2, then I'll end up with 8 is greater than 4, and it's still true. And it will be true as long as I multiply by a positive number. The trouble happens when I want to multiply by a negative number. So watch this. Let's still keep 4 is greater than 2. I'm comfortable with that. It's a true statement. What happens if I multiply by negative 2? I get negative 8 is greater than negative 4. And we know that the bigger the negative numbers get, the smaller they're getting. So this is no longer a true statement. What we have to do to compensate for this little problem is we have to do something here with our sign. So when we multiply by a negative number, we have to change the sense of our sign. So what that means is we just flip it around. So this is probably the biggest difference in inequalities over equalities, is that when we multiply or divide by a negative number, I hope you're writing this down in your math notebook. When we multiply or divide by a negative number, we must change the sense of the sign. I said it that way because that's the correct way to say it, but in our minds, we often just say, flip the sign around. All right, so let me work a word problem for you. The Jefferson Band Boosters raised more than $5,500 from the sales of their $15 band DVD. Define a variable and write an inequality to represent the number of DVDs they sold. Solve the inequality and interpret your solution. So never try to do all of that at once. Just start at the beginning. Define a variable. So we don't know how many DVDs. So the variable X or D or whatever you want it to be could be the number of DVDs. N would even be great. And we know that when we sell DVDs, they cost $15 each. So we're going to multiply 15 times the number of DVDs, and then that will tell us exactly how much money we make in our fundraiser. But we know is that the Jefferson Band Boosters raised more than $5,500. So we know that this money, 15 times X number of DVDs, is going to be more than $5,500. So we say 15x is greater than $5,500. All right, we did this, and we need to do this. So in order to solve this, I'm going to divide by 15. And I'm going to ask myself a question every time I multiply or divide with inequalities. Did I multiply or divide by a negative? No, I did not. If I did not multiply or divide by a negative, I'm going to keep the sign the same. Make sure you keep bringing down your sign, but copy it exactly the same unless you multiply or divide by a negative. All right, to finish this out, I need to do 5,500 divided by 15, and I am going to get, I believe, like a decimal. 5,500 divided by 15 gives me 366.6 repeating. Well, the 0.6 repeating doesn't make sense when I am talking about the number of DVDs. So we don't sell 0.6 of a DVD. So I'm going to need to round that. And I'm going to say that X is going to be greater than 367 DVDs. To choose, you're going to have to think about what makes sense. So I know that I had to sell, if I want to sell more than $5,500, I need to sell more than 366.6 repeating. So 366 is not going to cut it. It's not going to be enough. So 367 will push me over the 5,500. I might have sold 368 or 369 because all I know is that they raised more than $5,500. So this is like the minimum. This is like the minimum that we know they sold based on the amount of money they have. All right, let's look at a couple other types of problems. Number 2, I'm on page 295. Number 2 says 30 is greater than 1/2 n. And it says to solve each inequality and graph the solution on a number line. All right, so in order to get n by itself, I want to divide by 1/2 here because it's 1/2 times n. Dividing by 1/2 is the same thing as multiplying by 2. If that doesn't make sense to you, experiment with that in your calculator. I'm always going to do that on both sides because the multiplication property of equality or inequality says whatever I do, whatever I multiply or divide by on one side, I have to do it to the other side. But I am not multiplying or dividing by a negative, so I'm going to keep my sign the same. 1/2 times 2 is 1, so I have just plain old n over here, and 2 times 30 is 60. I don't love this order, so I'm going to put n first. N happens to be on the pointy side, so I need to keep the pointy side pointing at n all the time. I can rewrite my answer then just like this, and it's still the same truth. 60 is greater than n is less than 60. And then the last step is to graph it on a number line. And remember, I don't actually sweat the number line too much. I set up the number that I want, and then I put an open or closed circle. In this case, it's not or equal to, so I'm never going to equal 60, so I'm not going to color that circle in. And n, my number line is called n, so I can label it like that. N is less than 60, so all of my possible answers go this direction. So 59 works, 57 works, 0 works, and depending on what I'm talking about, obviously when I was talking about DVDs, I wouldn't be talking about a negative DVD, but in this case, all numbers less than 60 are solutions to this. All right, the third problem looks like this. Negative 3/4 times r is less than or equal to negative 6. Now, a good way to do math is to pause this every time I write down a problem and see if you can solve it on your own. And if you don't, then you can watch it and your brain will be primed to listen to what I'm saying. If you do know, you'll just get the confirmation that you can already do it. So no matter what, always pause the video and try to work the problem yourself. Okay, I have negative 3/4 times r, and so I need to get rid of negative 3/4. I'm going to divide by negative 3/4. Dividing by negative 3/4 actually multiplies by negative 4/3. I'm just writing it below because there's not really room up there. And I have to do that to both sides. And I am dividing by a negative, multiplying or dividing by a negative. So I must flip my sign. So this sign is going to change directions just like that. Anytime I multiply or divide by a negative, I have to change the sense of the sign. So negative 3/4 times negative 4/3. Negative times negative is positive. That's why I do that. Match the signs when you're doing that. Cancels that out, so I have r on that side. I need to do the math. Negative 6 times negative 4/3. Oops. And I get 8. Probably should have just done that. Negative times negative is a positive. That makes sense. R is greater than or equal to 8. Here's what the number line looks like. I'm going to put my 8 on there. I need a closed-in circle because I have an or equal to sign, which means it can equal the number. And R, number line is called R, is going to be greater than 8 or equal to. And the closed up circle takes care of the or equal to. All right, number 4 says negative c over 6 is greater than or equal to 7. So in order to get rid of this 6 divided by 6, I'm going to times by 6. It's negative 6, so I'm going to times by negative 6. You could have thought of this as negative 1/6, and so we could be dividing by negative 1/6, which is the same as timesing by negative 6. Or you could think about multiplying by the reciprocal, which would be negative 6 over 1. Same deal, same deal. Check it in your calculator if it doesn't make sense to you. I am multiplying or dividing by a negative. I need to change the sense of the sign. I need to flip it around. I need to copy it. I actually put this arrow in my work so that I won't lose track of the fact that I have flipped it when I needed to. All right, everything canceled over here other than C, and what's left over here is a negative 42. It says to graph it on the number line. They're also showing it in set builder notation. So here's what the number line looks like. I've got a negative 42 going on. I need a closed up colored in circle because I have or equal to. And C, this is called C, is going to be less than or equal to, so it's going to look like this. All right, set builder notation looks like this. I say C such that C is less than or equal to negative 42. All right. Let's do number 8 just because there's some extra signs in there. Negative 28 is less than or equal to negative 6x. I know that I want to divide by negative 6 because I'm canceling the negative 6's to get a 1. I am undoing multiplication by using division. I must do unto the other side what I did to this first side. And I am dividing or multiplying by a negative. I need to just keep asking myself this question every time so I don't lose track of it. I need to flip that sign. These guys canceled and I just have an x over here. Over on the left I have negative divided by negative. And this is not, which is going to make a positive, but I'm going to leave it as a fraction because it doesn't come out even. 6 times 4 is 24. So I actually have like 4 2/3 or something. So, but I'm going to just reduce this by 2's. 2 goes into 28 14 times and 2 goes into 6 3 times. So I can just say 14/3. If you would rather say 3 times 4 is 12 with 2 left over, that works also. And this is what my number line looks like. This is a really cheater way because I'm not going to show things being broken down. And I need a closed up circle because we have that or equal to. And I'm going to call this x because my variable was x. And this number happens to be greater than or equal to, so it goes that direction. So be very systematic and careful. What we learned today was that we can multiply or divide by anything we want to if we do it to both sides. And if we multiply or divide by a negative, what do we have to do? We have to flip the sign. Be showing your work so that you don't lose track of any steps. I really want to challenge you to not make this a mental math exercise. I want to see you doing this in a notebook, page by page by page, so that you can take notes. You should have this in your notes today about multiplying and dividing by a negative. It is called the multiplication property of equality. I'm sorry, the multiplication property of inequality. We already learned the multiplication property of equality. So do nice work in a notebook. Stay organized. Stay on top of those negatives. They are the thing that most people miss. Not the big ideas, but the little details. And work your practice in Alex. And let me know if you have questions or rewatch this video.